Yes, indeed. Welcome to the Bladtcast. Accept no imitations. You know, this is the Bladtcast when the Blatt is here, and always a thrill to have any of our original cast on the Bladtcast, but specifically this man here who's on the Mount Rushmore of the
Oh,
Bladtcast, the
well,
founding fathers of the Bladtcast, the great William J. Sterling. Will Sterling underscore. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Would I? Which of the founding? You're Washington, obviously.
I mean, I kind of have to be, yeah.
Uh, am I a Thomas Jefferson? John Adams? Ben Franklin's a little old, so I don't. But
Yeah.
he's
Teddy
probably the.
Roosevelt's on there, right? You're a bit of an outdoorsman.
Is Teddy Roosevelt one of the founding fathers? I mean,
Well,
he was.
no, but he's on Mount Rushmore
I
because
see.
that's when they built it.
I see. I was thinking
Yeah.
of the founding fathers. Well, I mean, he is why we call it the teddy bear. So maybe that's
And
maybe.
yeah, and you're much as we continue to effort towards the expansion of the Wilterage, we're also trying to get the Willie Bear to catch on. Although I think that name has not tested well,
No, well,
unfortunately, especially
yeah.
not in the UK.
No, especially also not because the bear design that we had. He's holding like a flashlight because he's curious. He has, he's like looking for ghosts and mysteries and stuff. But the way that they placed it in the design, it looks like he's holding something else.
It might be a little problematic. Well,
Yeah,
Will Sterling, it is great to see you again. Thank you for being part of the chaos of the annual self-thrown birthday party episode.
of
Uh,
course.
our buddy Coltrane has expressed an interest in coming back on, but I think he
Oh,
doesn't want to be a part of there being like six people at a time. I'm like, it's kind of fun, but that's I kind of explained to him. It's like it's one of these things that it's like it could have been just me, could have been
yeah.
me and you for most of it. And then at some points there were just, three of us, and then there were five. And I think there was even a moment where we had six.
Yes.
So yeah. And I don't like to
Sounds.
make the StreamYard boxes work that hard when there's six.
I feel like that means he's saying he wants to be the guest of honor.
He should. And
So
by the way, I will tease what I already know that we're working on. His girl Casey Anthony has been very active on social media. She's been posting a lot of videos.
oh boy.
So it's almost like the perfect timing. Him saying like, "Oh yeah, let's do something soon," and then Casey Anthony's posting videos. So we can spend some time on those. I guess that's not any of our next couple of episodes. Next week we're going to do our annual. It's only our second annual, but it's our annual salute to St. Patrick's Day by celebrating another of the fine film franchise Leprechaun. We'll be doing another of the greatest films in that series, Leprechaun 4, which is just called In Space. So I've actually never seen this one, but
Wait, it's called Leprechaun in Space, or it's just
it's
called
just called In Space. It's Leprechaun 4 at the top of the VHS box,
Oh,
and
I
then it
see.
says In Space.
Okay.
Yeah.
When was Leprechaun in the Hood? What number is that?
That's number 3. So last
Oh,
year we did Leprechaun the OG with Jennifer Aniston and Leprechaun in the Hood because
okay.
I was just like, I can't ignore the the amazing filmmaking that is Leprechaun in the Hood.
Yeah.
And I did that with my friend Kaylee and then my friend Adam Hughes. Just Hughesy for most people. He's not just Irish; he lives in Ireland. So I always need to check in on him to make sure that he's basically there to make sure that it's authentic.
Yeah.
It's purely Irish. I had him recently on the show I do on the Who Are These Podcast Network, Who Are These Broadcasters, because I wanted to know what he thought of Grimace from McDonald's. His Uncle O'Grimacy has returned this year. Are you familiar with Uncle
Is that
O'Grimacy?
Uncle Grimacy's a real character?
Yeah, apparently he was around like 50 years ago, and
What?
they've brought him back.
I did
Yes.
not know this.
So you didn't know Uncle O'Grimacy?
I'm
Is that what you're
familiar with
telling me?
Grimace, but not Uncle
I mean,
Grimacy.
who's not familiar with Grimace? I mean,
So we at least know the Grimace is partly Irish. He's an amorphous blob sort of mystery creature, but he's at least a little bit Irish.
Yeah, I wasn't planning on going down this road, but I would like to introduce you if you'll have it.
Please.
I'd like to introduce you to Uncle Grimacy.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the present day Uncle Grimacy.
Oh, so he's green. Okay.
Yeah, so he's basically a green Grimace.
Okay.
He looks like a puppet friend of mine, actually, a little bit. A puppet friend that you and I periodically talk about. That I feel like I didn't introduce you guys under the best circumstances. My friend Tukey. I thought it would be really funny to have him just show up as we were having a serious conversation about Oppenheimer. And I stand by that decision. That it was like,
I still don't know. I feel like I must have been in a terrible mood because I feel like in our text you also referenced. We talked about this just before the show, and I was like, I must have really not received Tukey well because now I have the reputation of being a puppet hater, and I don't feel that is my. That's I don't want to be.
No, and honestly, I mean, the Will Sterling that I know is no puppet hater. I mean, you're a tremendous supporter of the Muppets. We did have a conversation. We'll bring our text thread to light. We started talking about Sam Eagle.
Yes.
And you did theorize that he's probably a Trump supporter. And then I wanted to know, and we'll ask the audience. And I feel like I might try to send this message to Bill Barretta, our buddy Gene's brother. To me, Sam Eagle from the Muppets is a character who loves America so much. He's so proud to be an American. He loves each and every president equally. Like he's 100% all in on all of them. He's got nothing to say about Nixon.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've just never met that American, so I feel like
it's because you haven't met Sam Eagle.
It's Sam. It's just Sam.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So obviously these are the hot button topics that we want to make sure we get to.
Wait, I had a stupid riff that I don't want to miss because the window's going to be passing. I just wanted to say that I'd heard that Roseanne is going to be testing like a new spin-off of the show called The Leprechauners. It's going to be just in time for St. Patty's Day. It's just her and some leprechauns because she got kicked off of the show, so she's kind of leaning in a new direction. Are you excited for the Leprechauners?
I am excited for the Leprechauners, especially because our friend and neighbor worked on the regular Connors for all the seasons of it. So now that means she's got a new gig. And our buddy Raging Rhino's in the chat with a shout out to Sam Eagle. And by the way, for the Leprechauners, it took 7.5 minutes for us to get to the bell. All right. So I wanted to introduce you to Uncle Grimacy and to see if you feel like he's a respectful representation of the proud Irish tradition and culture.
Ronald, everything looks green.
Oh, green butterflies.
And green footprints.
By the way, there's a word we would have used back in this time to describe Grimace that we don't really say anymore. He seems dumber in like 1975, doesn't he?
Yes, but I feel like the costume is cooler. The eyes Google and they move around. It's also lumpy and it folds when he moves. So now he kind of looks like an emoji poop. And Uncle Grimacy today was just a regular suit. This Grimace really can.
This Grimace can bend,
which can crouch.
It horrifies me, actually, that this Grimace can bend. All right, so let's get back to the action.
Uncle Grimacy!
Hello, boys, I'm back, and I'm painting everything green to match me Shamrock Shakes.
Shamrock Shakes are back? Yummy.
Let's celebrate at McDonald's.
By the way, that is Ronald's solution for everything.
Celebrating McDonald's.
It's just more like, oh no, you had a tragic accident and you've lost your family. Well, let's head to McDonald's. It'll make you feel better. And by the way, might not be wrong.
I was going to say, there's probably something to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I talk about this with my wife sometimes. I'm of an age that I remember kids having their birthday parties at McDonald's, and it was the most amazing thing that could ever happen. Now, the characters wouldn't show up, but I think they would let us walk into the kitchen and show us around. But that also might have been something I did at Cub Scouts. But McDonald's truly was a happy place. And let's finish our little adventure with Uncle Grimacy.
Shamrock Shakes, they're a beautiful green, the most beautiful green that we've ever seen.
Shamrock Shakes, they're a beautiful green, Uncle Grimacy.
By the way, why is Ronald's voice so deep? What is he? Orson Welles as My Uncle Grimacy.
We-
It's me, Ronald McDonald. Come to McDonald's. Like that's
There's a
not how it
woman in Lincolnshire, and
is. Yes, that's right.
yeah,
That's me.
this Ronald McDonald's. Like, there's a lot of directing going on here. By the way, the great, the wonderful, the lovely
Oh,
Lynn
Lynn.
Bollinger,
The sweet
the
Lynn
great
Bollinger.
Lynn B, saying hi, Will. I'm here too, Lynn, but I know I'm always here, so it's all right. So yeah, I asked Husey what he thought of having this character who does that the fate of Begor, that whole thing.
Yeah.
And he said no, it's fairly accurate.
Okay.
But what he told me is they don't even have shamrock shakes in Ireland.
Oh,
And he actually had a pretty great line. He said, like, what is it? Do they put a potato in it? And I was like, oh, I wish, But where do you stand on the Shamrock Shake, Will?
I've only had one in my life, and it was after I feel like many years of you hyping it up.
It's my fault, right?
Not fault. No, I mean,
Yeah.
it never was on my radar, and
Mhm.
then I had it. I enjoyed it, but I've never gone back because it's like minty, right?
It's very minty. Yeah, you
Yeah,
have to
which-
you have to want that.
I like a mint,
Yeah.
mint chocolate chip ice cream, mint, flavor stuff. It's nice,
They,
but
they have an Oreo one too, so it kind of adds like a little bit. It's
an
got the
Oreo
mint flavor.
Shamrock Shake.
Yeah, there's an Oreo Shamrock Shake.
Oh,
All
that
right,
could be
Lynn.
good.
Now we're still friends. She said hi to me as well. And Raging Rhino, Purple Grimace, Green Grimace, McDonald's is 4 colors away from a Pride Month tie-in. That's a
in.
great point, Raging Rhino.
Truly, why have they not thought of this?
Yeah, I don't know actually. So, in any event,
Grimace could be the Pat of the McDonald's characters. I mean, like, what is
have I was thinking about this. Are we right at, or are we very close to you at the 1 year mark of living in New York City?
end of July.
Okay,
would be
so
the
it's
one
all
year.
right.
Not quite.
Okay, so it was right before. I thought it was right before I was about to go on spring break with the kids. It was before I was about to go to Tahoe. All right, so we're not quite there yet. But this was your first winter. I mean, you're still in the thick of it.
It's
How are
cold
you?
today,
How are you finding winter in New York?
It was fine. I feel like a lot of people have asked me that question. Not as brutal as like living somewhere else where it could be like in the negatives. We got some snow, but it doesn't really ever stay for very long. So it's like, I don't know. It's not that annoying, and it's still quaint because I'm new here. So I'm like, oh, it's the seasons. Although I will say now that it's March, I had breakfast and a long walk with a friend this morning, and it's cold again. And I was like, I'm good now. Like now that daylight savings time is coming on Sunday, and we're like heading into spring.
Yeah.
I'm ready for it to.
Yeah, no, there's always that moment. A lot of times, my friend Tim Sicardo, who's been on this show somewhat recently, he was my roommate when I moved to LA. He talks sort of about there's always that one moment when you're coming up out of the subway to walk to work, and then there's just this like huge gust of wind that hits you as soon as you get up, and you go like, "Yeah, I'm done." Basically, all of New York is Danny Glover. Getting too old for this shit.
It is weird how like I'm not accustomed to like if it's a really cold wind and it does hit you, it like almost goes into your nose and you like it takes your breath. You can't really like. I'm like, oh, I can't breathe for a quick second, and that's kind of a weird sensation.
It is, yeah. But well, I'm glad you're enjoying it, Lynn B. I'm not quite sure whose demo you're talking about. Are you talking about McDonald's? Or is there like a comment that I'm not seeing? But you're our demo, I hope. I know we have episodes where Lynn B needs to tap out. There's times where I'm like, oh, Lynn, I know what we're talking about. This might not be the one for you. But Will and I are just having a nice chat. She loves going to the movies. And the reason why that chat is up on the screen is for the simple fact that I do want to talk to you about some of the movies. Now, you did not watch the Academy Awards, and I will tell you that you didn't miss much. Perhaps you saw some stuff on social media if you were so inclined, but even if you didn't, it was all right. In general, I'm a bit of a sucker for the pomp and the circumstance of the Oscars, and I thought that last year we had an exceptional slate of films. I thought this year there were a couple of good ones and a few that I never got around to seeing. So what is your feeling for basically 2024 at the movies?
I didn't see like at least half of the movies that were nominated. Usually I work hard to like see everything on time and vote for the SAG Awards and certain things. But this year I just got busy, I think, with the move and trying to catch up with projects and things, and I didn't watch the Oscars. I had opinions on some of them. I saw Nora, which I know kind of ended up being the big winner, and The Brutalist and some other stuff. But I've been on a long social media break. I've been off of social media for like a month just to kind of come down from feeling crazy a little bit.
Sure, I get that.
And also didn't watch the Oscars. I'm kind of just like, I'm in work mode right now. I'm in like, I want to write my own stuff. And there's something every once in a while, the pomp and circumstance rubs me the wrong way. And I just wasn't in the mood for it this year. So I skipped it.
Which one do you usually have more of a problem with, the pomp or the circumstance, or is it 50-50? Is it completely equal?
Probably circumstance. Pomp, could be a pompadour, could be a pom-pom.
Oh.
Could be a pomp.
Palm olive?
The French version of a pomp.
The dishwashing liquid palm olive.
It could be.
So Lynn has explained, she meant to say she's seen none of these films. These films do not feed the soul in any way.
Okay.
I think that there are probably some examples of that. I think that what the movies should deliver to a mass audience is kind of something like Wicked, which is very pretty to look at, and it's this property, and there was so much excitement about it. Did you see Wicked? I can't remember if you saw that one or not.
I did not. It got good reviews, and I feel like I'm gonna watch it at some point, but I didn't see it in the theater. I get a little nervous about a 2 hour and 45 minute part one of a story.
Oh, yeah.
Which that's like Mission Impossible. The last one, I was like, I know this is the Spider-Verse. I don't love, you can kind of continue a story, but I also kind of want the story to have something gets tied up in the end.
Did you see that Mission Impossible, the most recent one? You did. Okay. Now I felt like they did at least an okay job where it's like, okay, that part of it's done, but there's more looming. You and I have talked about this. We had the same problem with the most recent Spider-Verse, which was, it was like, old timey radio serial, like cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Or really, to keep in the theme of this show, it's the end of the part one of every episode of the, Adam West Batman. Yeah. What's this? Miles Morales facing his uncle? What's going to happen? Tune in next time. Same bat time, same spider time, same spider channel. I didn't like that feeling.
Didn't either. And that movie, it was also like 2.5 hours long. Animated movies being that long and also just being part one. I remember when they changed the title, because I remember seeing the promos originally saying it was Across the Spider-Verse Part 1, and I was like, oh shit. But then they took away the Part 1, and I was like, okay. I thought that they were going to tie up a story and then continue a different story, like kind of in the next one. And so it kept getting to a point where I was like, man, they're really still setting up the dominoes, and they got to wrap some of this shit up. And then it got to the end of the movie, and I was like, oh, they're just not going to wrap any of it up. We have to wait 3 years before we can understand how any of this.
Listen, part of that is because there was the writer's strike, but I mean that they just said actually it's going to be 1 more year, and it's like, okay, great, but I kind of would have liked some kind of feeling that it ended. Jason Blair popped in to say hello. Can't watch live. I'm taking my daughter to get her ears pierced at the moment. I'll catch the ep soon. Heather took Lucy to get her ears pierced. I was not there for that. Apparently she took it like a trooper. The first one, there was a little bit, there were a little bit of tears, but she was very excited to be the proverbial big girl now and get those earrings. So Jason, Godspeed. I hope it goes well.
They grow up so fast, Christian.
Oh, I know. I mean, he's got 3 of them exactly the same age too. So it's like, at least I've still got one that's a little bit smaller. Like Lucy's 7. Felix is going to be 10 this year, which is insane.
Wow. Yeah. And shout out to Jason. But he took a quick call with me to have a quick IP conversation.
You guys did talk about copyright law, right? Something like that.
We did copyright infringement, and I'm just writing something, and it involves featuring or showing or discussing copywritten characters while they are not actually part of the story, the characters of the movie. And just wanted to get some okay from Jason Blair to know that I wasn't writing myself into a corner.
No, and yeah, he's great on that. And I do keep promising him that we're going to do an episode on copyright law and intellectual property and things like that. There's aspects of that I do find fascinating. Raging Rhino says, I'm almost to a point where I'll treat 2-part movies like I do full seasons that get released one at a time on streaming. Just wait until I can watch it all at once. There's something to be said for that, for sure. So I agree with Raging Rhino to a point. So we were kind of talking about Wicked is how we got caught up in that twister. And I mean, I think that I don't believe that this property should have been turned into 2 movies. I think that I think this part 1 is longer than the stage play if you don't count the
That's what I don't understand is I'm like, how did you do this?
I'll tell you what the biggest problems are as a result. The best thing about that show is the songs. And the songs are very far apart in this movie because this is only half of the play.
Right.
And I think they do that thing that they always do where they throw in some new songs because you can't be nominated for best song if it's just songs from a Broadway show.
Right.
So, they just toss something in there. It was a little surprising that it won, I think, makeup and costume. It won things that it deserved. I just was like, I thought this was going to be maybe like a Titanic situation where it's like, well, this movie's so popular and people are going to get caught up in the excitement. But somebody said, I think it was on our Oscar show, the idea that it might be kind of like if you remember when Lord of the Rings Return of the King came out, it won all these Oscars. I think it won everything it got nominated for. It was more like, wow, you guys really did these 3 movies and the amount of time you gave us. So maybe part 2 of Wicked is where everybody's going to, put the accolades on there.
I feel like given the box office success, they're very happy they split it into 2 parts.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll make a 3rd one that just has nothing to do with it. That's set in the land. I heard that they're going to try to do theme park things out of it. Like I think Wicked did better than they were expecting. So they're happy.
Conan had a great joke about it at the Oscars. He said that Wicked is the perfect movie for everyone who watched The Wizard of Oz and thought, hey, where did all the minor characters go to college? It's a great joke. Conan had a couple of bangers, as they say.
That's good.
And that was one that I liked. So
I did ask myself that question though.
Yeah.
So he's not wrong.
And one day I feel like you'll watch it and you'll see how they stretch it out and the storylines that they've added, and you're like, okay, did we need this?
Yeah,
we needed your guy to say like, okay, look, I get it. You want to make all the money, but
tight in an era where I'm really trying to make everything I'm working on right now really tight, fits into under 2 hours. Everything must be under 2 hours is my goal as a writer, because also as somebody who's like early in a career or trying to break in, if you're like, hey, here's my 145-page screenplay, people are like, I'm not. Nope. Yeah, absolutely not.
No, can you read all 10 episodes of the series that I'm going to go out and pitch?
Yeah.
No, actually I can't. I absolutely cannot. It's like, hey, how about, can you listen to this 2-minute trailer for my new podcast? Yes, that I can do. I would be happy to do that. That's absolutely not a problem.
Yeah.
As we talk about movies under 2 hours and, we're sort of, leaning towards fine film and cinema with a capital C, I did want to give you a moment to share your thoughts with our Bladtcast audience who probably wonders what you thought of the latest Captain America movie. Now, we have not had our full Captain America episode. I have to cut together 3 conversations that I did for Geekscape. That will be the bonus episode, basically, in the week that this one's released as an audio. Okay. I will give that to everyone. And you and I talked a little bit about it, but I wanted to know kind of what your expectation was heading into this Captain America movie, and then what you actually thought about
it. Expectations were normal, not super high, but not super low, because I really quite enjoyed The Falcon and Winter Soldier. I thought the Disney explored a plot line that I was just like, wow, I'm very surprised that they actually allowed them to talk about the Isaiah Bradley stuff and really give Sam a long period of time to kind of dwell on whether or not he was willing to accept the mantle. He does. He gives this great speech in the end, like a little heavy-handed, obviously, in places, but at that point, I'm like, who cares? This is exactly what we want. This rousing, like true patriotic feeling speech. And then the movie is just sort of that thing where you're like, oh, right, but now it's just another movie. So we don't get as much rich character development. We don't get, because we had like 8 episodes to break out all this stuff. And then you've got that movie was under 2 hours, which is crazy.
Which I'll commend them on that, by the way.
Yeah.
It's great.
Didn't feel like I needed it to be longer,
No.
but at the same time, I don't know about all these reshoots and stuff. Actually, the thing that I was certain was the reshoots, because they felt so out of place, turned out not to be the reshoots, and I was like,
oh, what did you think was a reshoot that was?
I thought the brain character guy was added in after the fact.
No, he was always going to be in it. Yeah,
and I one of the things about that, his makeup looked so cheap to me that every time they cut to him, he looked like a Buffy the Vampire Slayer villain. It looked like a TV, like a Doctor Who character, like quality, where like they're doing camp almost on purpose.
And by Doctor Who, you mean the original series, the classic series.
Tom Baker. Yeah,
right, exactly.
So every time they cut to him, I was like, oh, I can't. It's hard to take him seriously because he looks so not scary. I love that actor, and what a deep cut to bring that back from Incredible Hulk and give Liv Tyler her quick little cameo.
Sure.
Still like Anthony Mackie for the character. I think that's cool. I hope it was okay, as I guess what I was, which it means it's a little less than fine, actually.
Okay,
fine,
so it's slightly sub fine, but not like so far below.
It wasn't. I hate to honestly, as I get older and I like try to do more with my career, I'm hesitant to like talk shit on things because one, I know how hard it is to get stuff made. I know how many people are involved who don't make, you know what I mean? Like there's so many different things.
Sure, I do understand that.
But it wasn't very good, and it was like, it felt like there was too many cooks in the kitchen, and the Harrison Ford of it, I didn't need a Red Hulk. I don't know. There as a villain, I was like, that's not interesting. The president, I don't know what the timing of it was, what they were anticipating, and the brain guy, not very interested.
Well, I will say that the movie was supposed to come out last summer.
Right.
That's when it was going to come out. So, but I agree. I do agree that we didn't necessarily need it, but I thought that visually the sequences with the Red Hulk were the most interesting. And I've said about that film is that the idea of holding back the Red Hulk and having it be a surprise, I can understand that temptation, but I don't know what you're promoting for this movie if it's not that. So and look, what I said is that I had fun, and that's what I want from those movies. Is I do want to have fun with it, and I do think that it showed that. Look, we know Anthony Mackie's a great actor. We've seen him in other things, but Anthony Mackie as Sam Wilson, I'm like, yes, he can carry a movie. That's not something that anybody needs to ask anymore. I think it's just this movie, I think it needed a lot of people to carry it, And,
I didn't know about the Bucky cameo.
That you want to talk about something felt like filmed long after the fact. That felt like
but honestly, my favorite part of the movie, because, and I wasn't expecting this, and it got me a little choked up. I was like, oh my god! When he leaves, he goes, "I love you, buddy," and I was like, oh,
was nice.
Dude, saying "I love you" to each other. Come on, America 2025. Let's go.
And just imagine, Bucky is not just a product of the first half of the 20th century in Brooklyn. He also was conditioned to be a killing machine by the Russians. Right. And yet he's at a place where he can actually say that to Sam, because he does feel that way. And he
very
does
special. Also, I don't know where it exists in the timeline for the Suicide Squad Marvel. What's it called?
Thunderbolts.
Because they're like, did you hear Bucky's running for Congress? I'm like, oh, what is that a point in the movie coming out?
I'll tell you this, Will. It was news to me. I had no idea that he was running for Congress. So perhaps this is before that. Perhaps this is after it. We're going to have to find out, I guess. Is what
I will say. That movie looks kind of fun.
It does look fun. Yeah. And by the way, in no small part because of David Harbour. And I also think I like the chemistry between him and Florence Pugh. I assume you didn't see the Black Widow movie.
I did not.
Yeah, no. David Harbour and Florence Pugh basically stole Scarlett Johansson's movie from her. That's what we were all talking about after we saw it. They were great.
After she was dead in the future, in the present, where you're like, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of a bummer. And she was good in
She was in
was she in
Hawkeye.
Hawkeye?
She was in
Yeah.
Hawkeye, yeah. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
great. She's like, "I'm gonna kill you because you killed my sister."
She
That was
was
great.
cool in that.
Yeah.
But that part, I liked the Bucky part. And the other thing that kind of bummed me out was I feel like that Isaiah Bradley story like did him dirty. Like they just spent so much time and work in the television show talking about how fucked up it was. And he's
Yeah.
like, I was in prison for 30 years and they were experimenting on him. And then the movie is like, he is switched. They brainwashed him. Now he's going back to prison. I'm like, what you should do is break him out of prison and put him in his original Captain America suit.
Yes,
and he
please.
can tag team with fucking Bucky or Sam and
Yeah.
who knows? And they can fight the Red Hulk. Like put
Or
Carl Lemley in. Carl Lemley is that what's
Lumley, I think.
Lumley?
Yeah.
Lemley. Carl Lemley is the
The movie theater chain
yeah.
here in Los Angeles. Yes.
Yeah, the Universal Studios person.
Yeah.
Put him in a 70s cap suit. I don't know. Do something interesting. Don't just like put him in prison and then be like, oh, what a bummer. This character that we like talked about being experimented on and all these different things. Like now he's just back in prison as like a plot foil.
Well,
that was kind of a bummer.
Our theory on our coverage of the movie when it came out was that the first ever trailer for this movie had a funeral scene, and it was a military funeral with American flags on coffins. So our theory that we have not been able to prove, but I stand by it, is that at some point in a version of this film, Isaiah Bradley died, and that's his funeral. So the way I look at it is like, at least they didn't do him that dirty. I agree. They definitely did him dirty.
Yeah.
But the fact that we can get more stories from him, I think is great. And of course, if we're showing off McDonald's things, we've got McDonald's toys and tie-ins. And because I'm not using my green screen today, I might as well even show up the Loki sauce that my
you are using your green screen. Your background is like a radio studio.
No, this is just a virtual background. You can see
okay.
when my arms disappear,
yeah,
I'm not using my green screen. I'm wearing a green t-shirt, so
got it.
That's kind of that's what the audience at home can look for.
Casey felt similarly to me. I think that it was like, okay, big fan of Falcon #2. I don't know that guy's name. I forget his name.
Oh yeah,
the character. Yeah,
the new Falcon.
Big fan of that actor.
Yeah, well, I checked his name tag. It just
he was
says
very
Falcon.
handsome.
Yeah, Danny Ramirez. He. I think that's the character name. But yeah, the new Falcon. And I'm glad that he didn't die. He also could have been somebody who died in an earlier cut of the movie.
That's true.
So I'm glad that the story will continue, and we'll see what they've got. I do, of all the movies coming up, I feel like the Thunderbolts will be the most fun. And I think I asked you this when we were celebrating my birthday, that I feel like you will probably check out the Fantastic Four, because hopefully one day they're going to make a good one.
I just love the Fantastic Four.
Yeah,
and it's like, it's all based in the 60s and that like very hyper, like throwbacky kind of like, like World's Fair kind of vibe. But at the same time, I've seen so many AI versions of like 60s, like fake art, that watching the trailer, I was like a little bit like, it feels like AI. Like I know it's not, but I've just seen, or maybe they're using that technology now for their visual effects. But I'm less excited than I wanted to be.
Yeah.
The Thing animation makes me a little uncomfortable, but
I'm glad you'll see it, because then we can talk about it. And even though you don't live here anymore, you're still in my AMC entourage.
Yeah.
And my friend Liam, who will be joining us in a little bit, is part of my current LA-based entourage. We'll talk to Liam in a little bit. He's backstage, and I know he's there. But we'll talk about a specific film with him. I want to get your thoughts on Nora, which won Best Director, Best Picture, Editing, and that's probably the one that I was like, okay. So nobody wanted to take that scene where they're looking for the husband, the Russian guy, and trim like 10 minutes out of it. You were there in the editing room. It's like that's like probably my main complaint.
He's the editor, so no.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
And I thought Mikey Madison was terrific. I think it was a great performance. Just so different than anything we might have seen her do before. I don't have any issues with that, but I know that you had some strong feelings about Nora, so I wanted to ask you about that. Well,
I love Sean Baker. Like, I think he's just a great filmmaker. I like the way that he makes movies. I like
Sure.
his last movie, Red Rocket, which not that many people saw. I thought was also very good. I like the Florida Project, Tangerine, obviously, which like there's a joke in the cell phone movie. I reference Tangerine in a silly way, but so he's just I think he's a talented filmmaker. This movie, though, although I liked big pieces of it,
Mm-hmm.
overall, I feel like it's called Honora, but I have no idea who Honora is. Like, we don't know her wants, her desires, like who she is. Not to say that we need a bunch of backstory, we need stuff, but it's helpful to know like what's her specific trajectory as a character to empathize with her. I think Mikey Madison really carried that. I mean, she did such a great job that I was like, I'd be happy if she got the Oscar because I thought her performance was so wonderful, despite the fact that on paper, I think that character has done a disservice in that she's set up in a weird way to be. I mean, he's very pro sex work, which I am as well. And I feel like there's a story where she starts as this hustler. Obviously, she works at this club and she, knows a mark when she sees one. That kind of goes.
And I'll just jump in. In one of his speeches, the first thing he said was he wanted to thank the sex worker community. And yeah, obviously, if you're familiar with his work, it shows that he has a respect for people in that community. Yes,
for sure. But then the pivot of like they get married and then she's like, I'm not divorcing you, we're in love. And I'm like, there's a big jump that I've never felt was really justified. And I didn't ever have a clear grasp on why she made the decision she made, why she believed the things that she believed, because I never felt like we really got to know her. She was just sort of the prism through which we viewed it. Aren't rich people shitty to poor people, basically, is kind of the takeaway. And yes, and then it's like there's that moment where they're about to get on the plane. She's like, then fine, I'm going to get a fucking lawyer. I'm not going to get this marriage, and I'm going to take him for half. And I was like, boom, there's the story. Like,
that is the story. Yeah,
she is like, he was a mark. That's her fucking job. Like, I just had an almost impossible time accepting that she went from Honora in the first like third of the movie to then suddenly believing that they were in love, that they were going to be married, that she was going to, if she wanted just money out of it, like, it was never clear, we never really understood who Honora was or why she was the way, what she wanted. And I'm like, it's called Honora. From a writing standpoint, I really wish you had a clear bead. And then all we do is we just sort of watch them go from scene to scene to scene, like, and then storytelling of like, and then they look at the pier, and then they go to the candy store, and then they go back to the strip, and there he is. They got him. You know what I mean? Like, they went to enough places and they found him.
And then they finally found him. I had a couple thoughts on that. First, I did want to say that the actor who played, the father, so the Russian father, he does hardly anything in the movie, but he laughs at the way Honora talks to the mother, because he's like, she never gets talked to like that. And the way that this guy just silently loves it.
Yeah.
I found that to be one of my favorite performances in the movie. I have made no bones about the fact that I felt like the actor's name is Mark Edelstein, and I just thought that the beginning part of the movie was fine, but I was just like, once he had to start like acting, I was like, no, it left a lot to be desired for me personally. He's the guy that she marries.
Oh, the kid. Yeah.
The kid. And I just felt like he was great for the beginning for when he was that guy. But then when it's like, okay, now you have to, deal with the consequences. And
a lot of things like flipped in the movie, which were like, it's fine. Like, of course that was going to happen. He didn't love her. She wasn't good, but all the actors were good. I mean, I think that it's well cast. Like, Sean Baker really knows how to just find these obscure people and get these like really incredible
down to the guy who's like the priest or the bishop or whatever that guy was, who's also like hustling on the phone at the same time. I agree, the casting is great. I don't love this actor for half the movie, but I think that he's great for the beginning part of the movie.
Right. So. He just gets great performances from these people, and I think that he like obviously he knows what he's doing. And again, it's like I stray from wanting to talk too much shit on things.
No, but it's fine. Like, because I wouldn't want you to pretend to like something that you didn't, though.
No. I mean, I'll always be honest that I'm on Letterboxd, which is sort of like the movie social media thing. The one thing I don't love about Letterboxd is that I feel like reviews have devolved into the thing that gets the most upvotes is like, what kind of shticky one-liner can you say as a joke? I'm like, Letterboxd really is like, to me, they're supposed to be the cinephile app, and now it's just like what tweets are the funniest tweets, not legitimate, like, discourse about the film. And I'm like, okay, I understand. A bunch of zingers, like, good for you guys. Now I have to scroll to find people's legitimate thoughts. But I have a system of reviewing, which is I only say 3 different things, and they're very simple. Every once in a while I expand, but not often. Sure. And it's either very interesting, or not very interesting. Those are the 3 ways that if you want to know how I felt about a movie, I don't want to talk major shit. So I'll be like, I didn't think it was very interesting.
Well, that's just sort of like the evolution of the old Will Sterling Bladtcast fine scale. The movie was fine, or it was better than fine, or sub-fine. A particularly good movie, I believe the French term that we would use on the show was fine plus, which was fine plus.
Yes.
And
I put Anora as interesting because it
is interesting.
It is interesting.
Yeah, you can't tell me it's not. Yeah.
A lot to like about it. He's like able to get away with making so much cool stuff on such a limited budget. It looks great. He shoots on film. At least I think he did for this movie.
I believe he does.
He typically does, except for Tangerine, which is on the iPhone. But all the things about it to like. There's more to like than not. But at the same time, I just bummer. We don't know who that character is or why. And then it ends with what feels a little bit like a pretentious shot of this thing with the guy. By the way, throwing around the F word, like, it's a different time, Sean. Like, you can change that word. You know what I mean? Like, I understand that you feel that people should be able to use this other F word in this way, but like, it felt a little mean-spirited, and it didn't need to be there. And a little homophobic, and I'm like, if that's the characters, then sure. But at the same time, I'm not sure.
Look, I think that your movie can have whatever words you want to have in it. It's just make it make sense, and you got to be careful. And Quentin Tarantino, I love his films. He's been called out for sometimes words that did you need it that many times?
Set the record, in fact.
Yeah. For Django,
which won Best Original Screenplay,
which is a topic on Bladtcast episode 1.
Was it Django new then?
Yeah, it was coming. The Oscars were coming up.
Oh my god, I still haven't seen it.
Oh, you never see that?
No, I mean, it's one of the only Tarantino movie.
Leo's performance is amazing, and he's despicable and absolutely hateable. But obviously Jamie Foxx. I didn't watch his sitcom, so in my mind, I've never seen him give a bad performance.
I haven't seen the sitcom either. So
my wife grew up; she loved that show, and Martin and Living Single.
What was it called? The Fox and the Hound? Was it him and the?
it was him, and the voice of the Hound from Fox and the Hound was Corey Feldman. So yes,
what was it really?
A Disney movie? Yeah.
God, I thought that movie was from like the 70s.
It's from 1981. So it's almost the 70s. I saw that movie in the theater at Long Beach Island. That's right. My grandparents took my brother and I love that movie.
Wow. So
Fox and the Hound. Yeah. Look, it's fine. I just think it's interesting to hear some other thoughts. When we did our Oscar show, my friend Kaylee was on and she really liked that movie. She hadn't seen the other movies. I want to get one final thought on sort of this movie and the accolades it received before we try and bring Liam in to talk about our final topic of the episode, which is my friend Roxy, who you remember, Roxy Schreier. She on Oscar night made the point that I know a film that I believe you did really like was The Substance, which I didn't get around to seeing it. It was sort of in that moment, in that limbo where it wasn't in theaters anymore, where you could easily see it, but it wasn't on a streaming service. So I was like going to pay to stream it. So I saw other movies that I would go see in the theater. So anyway, that's the sort of my excuse for not seeing it. But so Roxy loved that performance. She thought Demi Moore was amazing. And she just felt like Demi Moore sitting there watching Mikey Madison give her acceptance speech was basically like the movie come to life. Now,
That was a tweet. Somebody tweeted that.
Okay,
and it
so
went- yeah.
do you feel like that is not an entirely unfounded?
It's not.
argument? Okay,
I think it's a little unfair. I think Mikey Madison really just fucking not. I mean, I think she's somebody who, like, watching her in that movie, I'm like, God, she's gonna have such a career. She's really at that age to be that dialed in at something. I think that she really did give a tremendous performance, and I think she's very good. Yes, she's young, and so it's like it can go that way, and I think that that's an accurate observation. But to me, the Academy response to Honora as end up being sort of the sweeper was a little bit of Shakespeare in Love. Like they feel that they're voting for something controversial because it's about sex work, XYZ, right? So there's this element of like your big, broad older voter pool is like, well, it's not that I'm not that biased to be voting for the lead of this movie because it's about something important and difficult and something that I otherwise wouldn't respect or like it challenges them. But it's also very safe because you don't get to know Honora at all. So I don't feel that they actually understand maybe what there's also like is a hot young 25-year-old white girl, and so like, and she's naked a lot in the movie. So it's like
I did notice that.
I don't want
to pretend I didn't know. I saw. Yeah.
That feels very unfair because like I said, I think her performance is fucking awesome, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was a little bit of the element of an older voting pool leaning towards the fact that they thought they were doing something to stick it to the man by voting for a movie about a sex worker, but they also had a little bit of a boner. And I just think about what was it Whoopi or somebody who criticized Shakespeare in Love? They were like, Gwyneth Paltrow shows her fucking tits and gets an Oscar or like whatever it is. So is it The Substance Come to Life? I mean, I think in that
to some extent,
kind of analysis, like, yeah, it is.
Yeah. Well, no, I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. So thank you. And it's basically the one movie that I still plan to see that
which like you're a horror movie fan. It is very bloody, but it's not scary violence. It's like over the top. I mean, it can be gruesome in the makeup effects and some of the way that they do it, but it's not like the Human Centipede, or the Terrifier movies, which we discussed recently, and you said you would not be watching.
I don't need to see the Terrifier.
Those are particularly gruesome. This is not that, but it is great. It does the body horror like 211 is awesome. So that
I'm glad the topic of horror came up because there's a movie that I specifically want to bring Liam in to talk about, but there's another movie that I think we should start with. Liam, say hello to the great Mr. Will Sterling.
Hello.
Your microphone's on mute, but
hey guys, what's happening?
Great to see you, sir. We were talking about horror.
What made me laugh about Honora? I just want to say real quick.
Sure, go ahead.
Is imagining Sydney Sweeney screaming at her agent Oscar night, going, "Get me a role as a prostitute. Why am I keeping my clothes on in these fucking movies?"
Why did they dress her the way they dressed her in Madam Web? If they were going to give us anything we could have looked at. Liam is part of my AMC entourage, where Will used to be the only member of my AMC entourage, but Liam and our friend Eric are in it. And we went to see The Monkey. Now, Will, have you had any hankering to see The Monkey?
I did see The Monkey.
What did you think?
Very not good. It's
wow.
Yeah. Not very interesting, I should say, on my ratings.
Right, not very interesting. I thought it was funny, which maybe that's not what you were looking for. And
I don't think Osgood Perkins is funny. I think
I see.
I recognized that he was making jokes, and I was just like, this. I'm worked up about that movie, so maybe I'm going to say slightly controversial things.
Oh, but good, please.
Between that and Longlegs, I'm like, this dude's a fucking shyster. He is not. He has aesthetic grounded in nothing. It's aesthetic for the sake of aesthetic. Like the movies are, but just also watching Theo James be so fucking handsome. Like, I'm a schlub. I'm like, you're absolutely not a schlub.
Not a schlub.
Like, work harder on the makeup or cast a different person. I really struggle with that, both that and log legs.
Well,
I just-
Liam,
ugh.
do you think that perhaps the monkey was accidentally funny? Because you, Eric, and I all seem to, get some good laughs out of it, and I didn't want to.
I really thought it was funny. The jokes were good. The kills were funny, right? Like, it was a movie that did not take itself at all seriously, and it just went in a bunch of different directions. Like, it seemed like, I didn't think Osgood Perkins was a guy who could necessarily have fun while making a movie. Like, I thought he was like a serious horror guy. And he just seemed like when he was writing the script and putting it together, he just was having fun with it.
Yeah.
No, I think that's.
I think
that's
he
fair.
did. I think he will. I think Osgood Perkins had a great time. I think everybody who made that movie probably had a great time.
And by the way, I didn't even know
I didn't
you'd
have a
seen
great
this movie, so I'm so glad that I brought it up because. So you put not interesting on your letterbox.
Not very interesting.
Not very interesting.
Yeah, that was
Is that the strongest, most negative thing you'll put on letterbox? Is
Yeah.
not very interesting. Okay.
Yeah. If it's something super niche and like fandom based where like it doesn't matter my opinion on it, like I'll put something really specific.
Yeah.
But like I was watching, this is like a really random property you've never explored, but I grew up a big Digimon fan, the competitor to Pokemon, as you know.
Sure. No, I know what it is. It's
the
it's the GoBots to Pokemon.
In my opinion, better storytelling. Just saying. But they released a bunch of movies recently, and I posted like this character loves this other character so much, and this character continues to be a fucking chode. That was my review, because I'm like, who's going to be mad that I criticized?
Probably the chode.
The chode
is going to be mad.
Well, he's cartoon.
So Liam, whose work can be found at watchliam.com as he builds up his YouTube and podcast empire. Yes. I brought Liam on because he was on our Oscar night recap, which was the day after the Oscars. And I kept kind of teasing and kicking the can down the road that we were going to talk about a complete unknown. And then we got to an hour and 45 minutes. And Will, I think you'd appreciate my growth as a podcaster and a host. At an hour and 45 minutes, I was like, all right, we should be done.
That's a lot.
I know, I didn't used to do that. But I did want to talk about it. And Will, as you and I were trading messages about it, you have not seen it.
Have not seen it.
Share with Liam and our audience exactly what you thought from seeing the trailer.
Once they made Walk Hard the Dewey Cox story, it sort of ruined music biopics.
That's fair.
And so watching that trailer, it's like I just felt like it was a trailer for a fake movie where they just hit all the emotional beats that they know people want to see in a trailer for a music biopic, which coincidentally is all the beats that Walk Hard the Dewey Cox story intentionally hits. So seeing it as like every time they cut to, Edward Norton, like, that's my boy. So I'm doing something inspiring. And then he's like, as soon as Chalamet opens his mouth, he's like, I'm Bob Dylan. I was like, absolutely not. I can't watch him do this impression for 2+ hours. It felt like an SNL sketch for a biopic movie about Bob Dylan, and Bob Dylan's not dead. So I also feel like it's Christian, was it you and me or some, I was maybe a different friend, but this feeling of watching biopics when the person's still alive and they're contributing to the movie where you're like, how much are they? What are we learning about this person? How involved are they?
I had a friend who saw it who didn't know that much about Dylan. Is like, oh wow, he really came off like an asshole. And I'm like, from my understanding, and Liam, you can correct me if he's wrong. He's a much bigger asshole than he is in that movie, or at least he certainly was.
Oh my god, yes,
yeah.
Yes,
okay,
so they actually kind of like steer away a bit because Bob Dylan is approved this. And because it's based on a book that is very pro-Dylan and very like all about the way he changed. I mean, the book is just basically all about Dylan's place in pop culture history. And kind of like it brings in a lot of the personal stuff. And I think that's why James Mangold ultimately had to go get Dylan's permission to include some of his relationships. And, Dylan has specifically requested that they not use his Susie Rotolo's name. And they changed a few facts about her because that ended bad. And she wrote a biography of him about Dylan maybe 15 years ago that I still haven't read. But anyway, I think part of the problem with the whole Dewey Cox thing is, it was so closely patterned after James Mangold's Johnny Cash movie.
Exactly.
Right.
Mangold's not going to change his formula because that really worked well for him.
That's
Sure.
what I mean. It's like know that it's James Mangold doing another, and I was just like, I can't. But even like the music biopic for Amy Winehouse, and like every time.
Let me jump into sort of what you guys are kind of talking about. To me, and I talked about this at the time. We Will Rock You, the Queen, the Freddie Mercury biopic was awful because it was so far removed from the truth, because it was produced by the surviving members of Queen who didn't want to look bad. And I guess they still are out there, even to this day, they're still out there with the Queen brand.
Yeah.
You know,
Are they all dickheads or something? They all suck?
No. So they make themselves, they want to make themselves look really good, but there's a reason that Sacha Baron Cohen walked away from the story. He thought he was going to get to play Freddie Mercury, warts and all, and there were no warts. And in fact, they didn't want to even focus on any activities that might have given him warts.
Sure.
You know, he's got like this one guy in his life who's like, oh, that guy really leads him astray to some questionable behavior.
Yeah.
And
it's not Brian May, by the way.
It's not Brian May. And it's like, you know, they recreate the performance at Wembley, and it's like, it looks really good. It's an impressive, but then you ask the question, why? Why did you do that? You know? And
I mean, listen,
so
my review for every movie, regardless of how good I think it is always going to be not gay enough. And so I feel like Queen, truly not gay enough. Come on.
No, the Queen movie is definitely 100%.
It has to be so gay. Make it gay.
You could take the gay quotient, double it, and it's still not gay enough.
Not gay enough.
What were you going to say, Liam?
Yeah, I think they're still afraid of losing their audience.
Well,
even though their audience
everybody's kicked any kind of diversity initiatives to the curb. Everyone's like, yeah, we're definitely not doing gay. So even a movie like The Brutalist, here I was going in thinking that this was going to be one of the gayest. It's called The Brutalist.
Yeah,
but wasn't the movie as expected.
It's not called The Brutal Fist. I think you're confused.
Oh, that's what. Yeah,
yeah. That's by the way, that movie is available. Will might review it on Letterboxd, and I believe your review for The Brutal Fist would be interesting.
Yes. Brutalist,
by the way,
got a very interesting. I quite like
Brutalist was very interesting. It's long, but it was very interesting.
The Challengers was kind of like sold on, you're going to watch these two guys make out. That was not a gay movie at all.
No, not gay enough.
Yeah. And they were advertising a man-woman threesome, and there's just like literally they were advertising it.
Even for Luca, even a movie called Queer, starring Daniel Craig. Like, come on, gayer, go.
So basically, the movie Queer, you have parentheses, not, and then enough, and just queer in
correct.
The middle. So what Will said about
real quick to that movie.
What was that, Liam?
That you had to finish real quick to that movie.
So, Will, the way you described Complete Unknown, having not seen it, is kind of the conversation my wife and I had after we did see it.
Okay.
It was like, I felt like down to details like set design and set dressing and wardrobe, it's all very perfunctory. And my wife has a little bit of PTSD from having worked on Mad Men, so those details always jump out at her. But just to me, I was like, they're kind of like, yeah, all right. It's like when I criticize a movie for having a lazy soundtrack, which you can't do on this movie because it's about Bob Dylan. That's not the complaint about it. But it's just like, everybody, it's like, okay, they're dressed the way that they probably should. Yeah, that street in whatever city looks enough like New York from the 60s. But it was like very paint by numbers. And I was like, well, that's why it didn't win. And you talked about Pete Seeger and the performance of the Incredible Hulk, of Ed Norton as Pete Seeger. And it's funny that you said that it's kind of like an SNL movie because I felt like Ed Norton gave a very passable Saturday Night Live impression. You had the prosthetic on and you kind of sound like him and you kind of act like him and you don't look like yourself. But I was like, it was not really like good per se. I found the performance, and you could tell me if you're if I'm wrong, Liam, but I thought that the performance of Woody Guthrie was much more compelling, because he's not able to communicate and he's in the hospital bed and trying to say like, oh, I'm impressed by this Dylan guy. And, here's a harmonica. No, it's not for you, Pete. Give it to Bob, and this is all, that's probably the performance I like the most.
Was that a real scene in the movie?
That's a real scene. Yeah.
Wow. See, even if that happened in life, I'm so accustomed to like seeing the scenes of like and then that's how he got the harmonica. It's like
Well, it wasn't quite like that.
I can't.
It wasn't like giving He-Man the sword that he holds up. It wasn't like that.
They did that more actually with Highway 61 Revisited with the police whistle.
Oh, I forgot about. Oh yeah, he buys this whistle on the.
That was actually Al Cooper's. So that's actually.
I hated that moment, by the way, when he buys this whistle on the street,
Yeah.
and then it turns up on the record. But anyway, sorry, Liam. Finish your thought.
No, sorry. In real life, that's actually Al Cooper, the organist's whistle, and he just kind of lent it to Bob. And it's not. This is part of the problem with the movie. Is like, with the, well, first of all, it felt like James Mangold was like, well, it's been 15 years, time to win another bunch of Oscars.
Yeah.
Let me just do with Bob Dylan what I did with Johnny Cash. But I think your point about Bob Dylan still being alive and well enough to participate in making this movie makes it a real problem, because especially if you're someone like me who's a little bit obsessive about Bob Dylan, you kind of like know what the folk scene was like. You kind of know what all these characters were really like in person. You also know like how things really kind of went down. I mean, it's not like Bob Dylan actually landed in New York. Everyone told him he sucked, and he went home for 6 months, and then he came back to New York and conquered everything. Like it's not like like in the movie, it's like he kind of shows up, and within a week he's crashing with Pete Seeger and hanging out with Woody Guthrie. He really had to network the Guthrie family before he got to Woody, because Woody was so sick. He had to like go to Woody Guthrie's house and hang out with his kids for a bit, Arlo and Nora, and then finally get to go to the hospital and play for Woody.
Yeah.
I'm trying to imagine. I also always like to imagine what Bob Dylan's reaction would be if one of his fans came into his hospital room, like when he had heart surgery, and just started playing "Blowing in the Wind." He would fucking have his bodyguards toss that guy out on his ear.
Yeah. See, it sounds like you're a big Dylan fan, which is cool. I love to hear other people's passions about stuff and to tell a tidbit of a story that, to me, that's where I feel like music biopics should live for a period of time to reset the palette, which is don't worry about the scope, about all the things, about the life, about all the impactful, about all the famous people he met. Like that story about having to hang out with Woody Guthrie's kids and basically charm this person, and it culminates in this specific moment of them that being the thing, like, oh, and then he becomes Bob Dylan. Like that's the movie to me, right? Very interesting, very character focused, very small. And we know who Bob Dylan becomes. Do we need to see a bunch of other actors play a bunch of famous musicians? Like, not really. We've walked the line. That's like, we've done it already a million times.
I mean, part of the problem is I felt like Complete Unknown just weaves its way through several potentially great movies, right?
Yep.
Like the folk scene that Dylan landed in was amazing, right? And for some reason, the only other folk singer Hollywood knows about is Dave Van Ronk. And what happened with Dave Van Ronk was he had this amazing arrangement of House of the Rising Sun. And one day Bob Dylan's like, hey, man, I'm recording my first album. Do you mind if I use your arrangement of House of the Rising Sun? And Dave Van Ronk's like, no, actually, I'm gonna use that. Dylan's like, oh, I already recorded it. Sorry, man. And that's kind of like the way Dylan treated all his folky friends.
What the fuck? Yeah.
Like, yeah, they were mad when he went electric at Newport in '65 for sure.
Yeah.
But also, the songs like a Rolling Stone and Positively 4th Street are big fuck yous to those guys. Yeah, and he had kind of worked his way into becoming a big star of the protest scene to the point where he was playing, at the March on Washington. Like he was one of Martin Luther King Jr.'s opening acts. Mm-hmm. And you can watch this video on YouTube. It's amazing. And so for him to kind of like, and it was the right move for him artistically, because he was a guy who always wanted to be bigger than the scene he was in. Yeah. And he was already changing pop. Look, I mean, Highway, the first Electric album came out 3 months before he did Newport. So, like, he was already performing with the Paul Butterfield Band by the time he got to Newport. So it wasn't like a huge shock. But there were longtime fans, like people who felt betrayed for various reasons, because he just turned his back on the whole scene.
Right.
And there's anyway, I could go on and on. But there's a
No,
theory
but that's one of the reasons I wanted to
Yeah.
talk to you about this, because I know you had strong feelings. I had very cursory appreciation for Dylan, and then I saw him perform live, and it definitely waned a little bit. I saw him over for the Grateful Dead, I think, in 1995, and
Oh, yeah,
I
you
literally
saw
had to turn to my friend, and it's just like, I don't know what song he's doing, and then halfway through it, you're like, oh my God, it's, like a Rolling Stone, or, it's like, it's a huge song, but he changed the arrangement. And, 30 years ago, not a strong singer. So you can make your case about the 60s if you want. But
you went a year too early. I saw him for the first time in '96.
Okay.
And he was kind of like, he was also getting, like, he'd also gone through a bad stretch in the early '90s where he was going on stage drunk a lot. And you can also see those videos on on YouTube, by the way.
Well, now I'm interested. Tell me more.
They're pretty amazing. I saw him, I think, in '96 when all the reviews were like, "Holy shit, Dylan is back!" And so I went to see him at the New York Roseland, which was not a good venue to see anything.
No, I lost my shoes there once because I was seeing Rancid.
Well, that's a story I hear a lot about the Roseland.
No, they have all the shoes on the wall, but they wouldn't let me take any of them.
But the thing was, and he was amazing, and his acoustic set was dynamite, and like we forced him to do 2 encores he wasn't planning to do, and Bruce Springsteen and Neil Young came out and did an encore with him of Forever Young. So it was like this amazing concert going experience. But yeah, he's so hit or miss. He's like so up or down with his arrangements and everything. I saw him 10 years later. It was one of the worst concerts I've ever seen in my life at the Continental Airlines Arenas. Like the Raconteurs opened for him and blew him off the stage.
Wow. Let me ask you a question. When that's happening and they're singing Forever Young, does Neil, after they say forever, does he just point to himself? Because like, forever me? I don't know. It's just
what's got 2 thumbs and this guy.
Yeah. Neil Young is somebody who I feel like I missed the window on. I know he's heading out on the road, and I'm like, I don't think this should be when I see him for the first time. I think
I saw him, the last time I saw him was at the Rose Bowl. There's a big music festival, and he headlined the first night. And my cousin's band was playing earlier, so she got me into the VIP and everything. It was a great way to see him. And he was great. Like, Neil Young is still great.
I'm glad to hear that.
You've got like 5 or 6 more years before Neil Young takes a turn like Paul Simon and Paul McCartney, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if you watched the Saturday Night Live 50th anniversary special, Will. But,
well, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, I'm mentioning it to Will though. I had the audacity to comment that. Well, what I said was pretty mean. It wouldn't have fit in on your letterbox. What I said was seeing Paul McCartney tonight, it made me mourn the loss of John Lennon all over again, because there's only one person in the world who would have been able to walk up to Sir Paul and say, hey, man, you don't have it anymore. You should stop. And John was the only person who could have done that. And I saw Paul, I guess it's almost 3 years ago now, and he's great. But, when you get into your 80s, all of a sudden it's...
I heard that, like, every McCartney show is, like, he plays for 3 hours. It's phenomenal.
It was great. It was phenomenal when I
didn't realize he's, like, now... I mean, I guess, eventually there's going to be a...
Actually...
And Paul Simon sounded worse, but go ahead, Liam.
What offended everyone was what Christian actually said was they should release Mark David Chapman after that set.
Oh.
No, somebody did... Eric Zane said that, actually. My co-host
really?
for these broadcasters. He said something. He didn't use it exactly like that, but
Zane said it. I need to work harder on writing jokes.
Yeah, no. If you're thinking the same as the host of the Insane Asylum, true fact. That's the name of the radio show he does. In addition to his broadcasters, the Insane Asylum.
Yeah.
Yes,
I'd rather be at Luigi Mangione's open mic than watch this.
I would too.
Yeah.
Because it's interesting, and Liam, when we talked about the Oscars, I don't think we talked about this movie at all.
Not at all.
I kept wanting to be like, yes, I want to talk about it, and I wanted to talk to you about it. So I think we didn't even talk about Timothy Chalamet, or I'm sorry, Chalamet, because that's funny.
Chalamet.
Yeah. I think we didn't talk about it at all, right? And
We talked about the Adam Sandler thing, but that was
we just talked about that. And I think it's important to share Timothy Chalamet's acceptance from the SAG Awards, which is the week before the Oscars, or the
classiest thing would be to downplay the effort that went into this role and how much this means to me. But the truth is, this was 5.5 years of my life. I poured everything I had into playing this incomparable artist, Mr. Bob Dylan. And I know we're in a subjective business,
That's all you've had?
but the truth is, I'm really in pursuit of greatness.
He would have probably been all right if he'd stopped here, but he goes on.
I know people don't usually talk like that, but I want to be one of the greats. I'm inspired by the greats. I'm inspired by the greats here tonight. I'm as inspired by Daniel Day-Lewis, Marlon Brando, and Viola Davis as I am by Michael Jordan and Michael Phelps, and I want to be up there. So I'm deeply grateful to that. This doesn't signify that, but it's a little more fuel. It's a little more ammo to keep going. Thank you so much.
So that's at the SAG Awards.
So is that him basically saying like the SAG Award like doesn't count as a real award because I want the Oscar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I was actually relieved that he didn't win because
It must
I
be
don't
brutal.
like his headspace heading into that.
What the fuck? I mean, that's the
Dude.
ego of like some of those people do talk that game, but then that's
Yeah.
when like Jordan does win the next thing, or like
Yeah.
Kobe does win the next thing. To say that and then to not win is like, oh no,
No.
Yeah, no,
Michael Jordan.
that's
Somebody
basically-
showed Michael Jordan that clip, and he's like, "And I took that personally." I'm
Yeah.
sorry, what were you going to say, Liam?
I'm going
That's
back to
Babe Ruth
basketball.
pointing to the right field.
Look, I mean, maybe
By the
Michael
way, that guy-
Jordan
that guy must
maybe
be-
Michael Jordan in a White Sox uniform. I'm not sure. What were you going to say, Liam? Sorry.
That guy must be brutal to do cocaine with. That's all I can think.
Timothy Chalamet or Michael Jordan?
Both.
No, Chalamet.
Absolutely
After-
both.
After
Chalamet.
that speech, I
Um,
can't imagine what he's like when he's when he's not on camera.
When he's high.
So-
yeah.
His performance and talking about all the time he spent, it reminded me of Bradley Cooper last year in the movie that he did that I can't think of the name of it right now. I did
Maestro.
a whole episode on Maestro. Thank you. And he also took 5 years to make this movie that was like, I didn't think Maestro was bad, but it certainly wasn't great. It might have been fine. And then it's like, all right, just because you spend a lot of time to do it doesn't mean that the movie's good.
Yeah.
I do appreciate that he sang and he didn't lip sync. And one of the things that I know that Oliver Stone's The Doors is a much maligned movie for many good reasons, but Val Kilmer actually sings those songs in that movie. So I always thought that that was good. I wanted to know, Liam, as someone who is a Dylan fan, and you even used the word obsessed. How did you feel about his performance, and do you appreciate that he at least sang the songs instead of lip syncing, or did he do a disservice?
You know what's funny is that speech actually sounds like young Dylan's inner monologue for sure.
That's probably true.
He might have actually absorbed that from really studying Bob.
5.5 years, you're gonna get something, I'm sure.
Yeah.
No,
You got to
serious.
embrace the attitude of the guy who approached the music a certain way, and if that's how he approached it,
He might still be in that headspace. So I mean,
yeah.
but there's also, I watched this movie after I watched him host SNL, and so I got to really know his covering Bob Dylan. Like he was allegedly performing as Bob Dylan on SNL when he was singing, as the musical guest. And he's singing like "Tomorrow's a Long Time," which is such a beautiful song. And the thing about his performance as Bob Dylan is, young Dylan was really hungry. He's hungry for success. He was hungry for drugs. He was hungry for women. He was hungry for notoriety. Like he was hungry to be the most famous, singer-songwriter of all time. And then as soon as he got his wish, he was hungry for privacy. Like it was like a lot of like just, and you never get that feeling from Timothy Chalamet. And the thing about Dylan, and I think the reason why it's so interesting that when Bob Dylan tries to act in movies, he's never any good, is that he's always done some kind of character on stage, whether it's young Woody Guthrie, whether it's the rock and roll poet, whether it's like, the evangelical preacher, which by the way, an amazing, if you listen to live concerts from that time, so much better than the albums. But just like, he's always putting on a character when he's performing, and he's always kind of just like got at least 2 masks on between him and the audience. He's doing Rolling Thunder review, literally, right? And so you don't get that from Chalamet either. He plays Bob Dylan kind of like the same on stage and off. And the key to Bob Dylan is he really does have that like Clark Kent Superman dichotomy where you watch a video of him on stage, or you go to a concert and he's like fucking energy exploding all over the place. And then as soon as he's not performing, he's just like real withdrawn and quiet and meek. And the best example of that is there's an early clip of Dylan on the Steve Allen show of all things, where Steve Allen's trying to interview him before he plays this song, and Dylan doesn't even want to talk to him. Like, and it's just like at one point Dylan's like, "Well, I can tell you the story, I can sing it," and that's kind of like always been his attitude towards the press, also. And you don't ever get that closed off feeling really when he's off stage.
Yeah, I didn't even think of it that way, but you're right. He is the same. By the way, that description of someone who's big and in command of the stage, but then the second they step off stage, kind of withdraws and heads off in a corner, reminds me of someone that Will and I used to both work with. And I think that's a fairly common.
Liev.
Yes, our friend Liev, definitely. No, but I mean that's fairly common. A lot of performers, and you're right. It's not nuanced in any way. And I was outright shocked that is her name Monica Barbaro was nominated for Joan Baez. I thought Elle Fanning was so much better in the movie, and I was just like, I mean, I guess I don't know if she did a good impression of Joan Baez, but it did remind me of one of my favorite SNL sketches, which was Nora Dunn as Joan Baez, and it was a game show called Make Joan Baez Laugh. And I think Nora Dunn did an excellent Joan Baez in 1987. But
you're right, she did.
Yeah, Nora Dunn had, at least at that age, that era, she had the perfect countenance to be playing 80s Joan Baez. So, Will, I would not recommend you see this movie because I don't think you're going to get anything out of it.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of plans.
It's interesting because it's just. It just felt like, you guys kind of helped me narrow my focus, which really is this idea that James Mangold is like, okay, it's been a decade. Yeah. Let's try and do it again.
That movie came out in 2005.
Okay. So that, you know what? Yeah. 20 years.
20,
all right.
yeah.
I cannot believe
I was in high school.
It's 20 years.
Yeah.
It almost worked.
I did like the guy. I did like the guy who was Johnny Cash in this. I don't know. I because he's not in this a lot. I thought he was right for a kind of almost cameo performance. He shows up a couple of times, but By
the way, the fastest way to save yourself from maybe or maybe not, or definitely tanking an Indiana Jones movie, is to just go back immediately to the thing that made everybody excited and happy with you, and just do that again. So that way you could pivot away from the fact that Indiana Jones traveled through time and like shook Archimedes' hand, and
it did poke a hole in the universe that I believe that Indiana Jones was in. But I'll say
I actually disagree, and in fact, I would say if that movie had ended with him staying back in time and just kind of like living out his archaeologist like passions in real time, it would have been an amazing end to the entire saga.
That would have been interesting, but I would have felt bad for Karen Allen, and I don't want to feel bad for Karen Allen.
No,
but I still think it's better than the Shia LaBeouf one. So that's where I'm at with that. But I don't know. I had fun with it. Well, I appreciate you guys talking a little bit about it, and Liam, I wanted to make sure that we sort of had this footnote where we talk about a complete unknown, and I think that. His performance, was like, okay, it really is kind of like SNL level performance where it's like, all right, they sent him a stack of VHSs of performances of Dylan. And they're like, yeah, just learn it. That's when I was an intern at SNL. That's how Daryl Hammond learned how to do impressions. You had to go to a place and get a bunch of VHS cassettes. It's true because it was 1998. And he'd stay in his office. He'd stay up all night, and then he'd come out with the impression. So I think that Timothée Chalamet kind of did that, and So, but it did. Well, I was going to say, it did remind me how much I like early Dylan songs, the music, not these performances of them. I was like, oh yeah, there's just some amazing songs. What were you going to say, Liam?
I recommend if you're really curious about that era of Bob Dylan's career and the folk scene in general, which by the way, like people like Tom Paxton and Ramblin' Jack Elliott and Doc Watson, like it's actually this really rich scene of a very diverse cast of characters, David Blue and so on. There's a book about Dylan and Joan Baez and her younger sister Mimi and her husband Richard, and just about the four of them hanging out. It's kind of like everything up to the motorcycle accident. And it's called Positively 4th Street. And it's just kind of like about this four-way friendship. Richard Fariña was this young folk singer / novelist. And he had married Joan's younger sister, Mimi, and who's also a folk singer, by the way, also has a beautiful voice. And he died in a motorcycle crash about, I think, 6 months before Dylan had his very controversial, did he actually crash or didn't he, motorcycle accident that kind of like took him out of the public eye. And, it was like one of those guys that was held up as like, if he had only lived another 5-10 years, he would have been as big as Bob Dylan, maybe.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
You get a lot of those comparisons. You always wonder, like if someone lived longer to put out more music, if Kurt Cobain was still alive today, would it be like Pearl Jam, where they've probably put out 10 albums in this century and I haven't heard a note on any of them because I tapped out. So we don't know. We can't answer those questions.
One of my favorite jokes, I don't know if it was a tweet or whatever it was like, if Tupac was still alive, how many Are We There Yets would he have made by now? I mean, family friendly.
If Kurt Cobain was still alive, he and Courtney would be divorced, but they would both be junkies living in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, kind of like the king of the hipsters.
You're probably not wrong. And on that note, I thank you both for your time. Will Sterling, obviously, history is still rated R.
Always.
Please let people know where they can find out and let us know what you and Craig are up to right now. I am woefully behind, so I actually don't know what
we are doing a needlessly long, I mean, maybe not needlessly, but a very long series on all the first ladies of the United States.
Oh, that's right. You told me that. Yeah.
We are at part 9. I think part 10 is going to be coming out. I think it's my podcast. I have no idea what we're doing. It comes out a week from today. We do every other Friday. So because I'm reticent to move to Zoom because it's fun to be able to record with Craig in person.
Sure.
So,
yeah, absolutely.
If I visit LA, I'm like, I need to try to swing through and record some episodes with Craig. We pre-recorded a bunch of stuff before I moved.
Well, you let me know when you get to Lady Bird Johnson. All right. That's what I need.
We've already passed Lady Bird Johnson.
Oh my God. All right. I gotta go catch up.
I mean, she's been recorded, but I don't think it's not been released.
It's not been released.
So, yeah.
What's the premise of the show?
It's called History Rated R. I mean, it's a history podcast, and it's like, I mean, our little tagline is, in history, everyone's a piece of shit. So we just look at the fact that, like, there's no reason to sugarcoat the stories about people in history and historical events. But Craig I'm a 37-year-old film person, and he's an 80-year-old former presidential speechwriter, and so we just have a very quirky dynamic, and it's a fun show. We've been doing it for a couple of years, and it's good for Craig's got to keep active. You know,
you got to keep him going.
Yeah, he just turned 80, so yeah.
And you can dig a little bit back through the archives and find a couple episodes with me, one on the code in Hollywood, and then what I brought to the table, which was the symbolism of the Wizard of Oz, which is very on brand.
I was going to say, you were probably thinking about that a lot while you were watching Wicked.
I kind of was, actually, because it's very, you were talking about paint by numbers. L. Frank Baum was not subtle. He knew exactly who everybody was, and I was happy to be a part of that. Fame by Misadventure still available. Where would people find your book?
Can I just ask, did you find a lot of references to the silver standard in Wicked?
Not in Wicked, no.
Switching from the silver to the gold standard, was there a lot of that?
No, but
that's what the Wizard of Oz was mostly.
Well, in the book, her shoes were silver.
Yeah. So that's like,
yeah. So yeah, no, we on History Rated R. I recommend everybody find it. This was it was based on like a handout, one afternoon in 11th grade in American history, and I saved this handout for decades because I was fascinated by just how the flying monkeys were the Native Americans. Oz was the president. It was all like, you're like, oh, he's not trying to hide any of this. Yeah.
He had very strong feelings about the silver standard, and
He sure did. Yeah. No, I
movies of the
know.
world.
So, Will, Fame by Misadventure, where do people find that?
Wherever you buy books online, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. You can get it, I think, Walmart.com. You can get it on Indie Bookshop, but it's all web based, so you can get a copy.
And Amazon also.
Yeah. Or my website if you want me to sign a copy. I'll send you.
Yeah. All right. Well, we appreciate that, Will. And Liam, what's happening over at Watch Liam these days?
Well, the next couple weeks I'm kind of busy. I'm in the former Soviet Union right now, selling some. I mean, taking vacation, paid by somebody.
Same
don't
difference.
need to talk about.
Yeah.
So surprisingly, not a lot of AMC theaters out here.
No.
Regal Chain is very, very big in the former Soviet Union, but not AMC theaters so much.
Really, they struck me as Cinemark territory, but all right, that's fine.
Cinemark, I think, is a little more brutalist, a little more Eastern European.
Christian. Come on, yeah,
you're right.
But yeah. So I'm right now. I'm just not everybody loves this. I am just pushing my watch hours and subscribes this week. So like tonight I'll be showing you guys the big broadcast in 1938 starring W.C. Fields. I sit there and watch with people, and we just talk about it in the chat. Next week, I will be showing footage from a 2009 cancer benefit I threw with Jim Gaffigan and Todd Barry and Kristen Schaal and a couple other more people that I'm still confirming. But that'll be at watchliam.com for sure. And there'll be links to donate to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society of America. And then after that, we have to do a show response to a blistering attack, Christian. Blistering broadside.
I'm going to weigh in on something a little bit on Tuesday on who are these broadcasters. Someone who could be described as a complete unknown called out Liam for not working with real talent. But yes, I feel like we need to have a talk back to someone who is basically the human embodiment of watching paint dry. But that'll be for the future. In the nearer future here on the Bladtcast, as I think I mentioned, I did mention at the beginning, we're going to have our recap of all of our different opinions on the Captain America movie, mostly because I was going to post it like a month ago, and we've just had too many episodes since then. But Liam was a part of that. My friend Husey was a part of that.
Can I just say, I had just given that guy his flowers for predicting Honora just winning everything. Like I literally just given that guy a big compliment.
The guy who mostly called you out, but then he dragged me into the mud. So yeah. But
it's Paul P. It's Paul P.
He's basically he's
for
a long time Bladtcast and Dennis Miller's show audience. He is the modern day Paul P.
Oh,
so in any case, so we're going to have that episode, but also the big St. Patrick's Day special will be another film in the greatest film series to feature Irish culture. We'll be talking about Leprechaun 4, which is called In Space. And I'll be joined by Kaylee from Once Over with Kaylee. And we already did Leprechaun in the Hood last year. That's the reason why we're moving on to In
Leprechaun 4 In Space. So much better than Leprechaun in the Hood. So much funnier, so much stupider.
It won't take much. I've actually never seen it. And it was Kaylee's suggestion. And Husey will be there. And I believe my friend Dan will be on.
Can I spoilers for you?
No, oh my gosh. No. We'll talk after.
How dare you?
Yeah,
have you seen the movie Alien?
Alien? Yeah, I sure.
Then you've seen Leprechaun 4 In Space.
Oh, no. Oh, wait, I like that movie. So great. I'm even more excited about it now.
You won't like it.
Oh, boo. All right. And so tune in there. And of course, I'm on social media at ChristianDMZ. And we appreciate it. Thank you, Liam. Thank you, Will. Thank you, everybody in the chat. Jason Blair, Raging Rhino, Lynn B. And that is all the time we have for now. We'll see you next time on the Bladtcast.